Bond. James Bond.
In case I don't see you. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Did we just become best friends?
Yup! Sublime!
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Tear me apart, Lisa!
But mostly I hate the way I don't hate you. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Not even at all.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Hi friends, and welcome to another mini episode of You Haven't Seen That. Normally, this is a movie discussion podcast where we introduce our friend Ben to movies he should have seen a long time ago. Today, we are doing a little recap of mostly Ben's trip to New York City, but Geoff and I joined him as well. And so we're going to do a little review of that. And we're going to end the episode with our most anticipated movies and TV releases for the remainder of 2025. I am your host, Amanda.
I'm Geoff.
And I'm Ben.
So let's get into it. Ben was in New York City for 5 days, 6 days?
5 days in the city and then a day of travel, yes.
Okay, 5 days. You saw 9 shows, is that right?
I did. That is correct.
All right. So Geoff and I joined for like a day and a half.
Yep.
A day
saw
and a quarter.
2 of the 9 with us.
Yeah, saw 2 shows. We did some other fun things that we'll give a quick recap of. But
yes.
I will turn it over to you, Ben.
Sure. So as we mentioned, I think teasing this episode that I go every summer to New York City with my friend Casey. We were in shows in high school and have been friends ever since. And he's the only other person I know who would see that many shows in such a short time frame. I guess I probably know other people who would do that, but the only one I'd feel comfortable traveling. You would not, Amanda. You would not want to see 9 shows in 5 days, would you?
Okay, I wouldn't want to pay for it, but
Amanda
I absolutely
put her
would.
hand up. That's why I'm reacting this way. All right. Well, the other one who's willing to put up the money for it too. Anyway, this typically we had seen kind of our go-to number was 7. And then last year we managed to squeeze in 8. This year we managed to squeeze in 9. And that was more about the fact that we were there during the week of July 4th, which meant some unusual performance schedules. Typically, if you stay for 5 days, you're going to probably see 7, maybe 8, depending on when you go. But because we had some unusual performance times, there's a Tuesday matinee of a show, which I'll get to, which there almost never is, but that was because of 4th of July week and shows weren't showing things on the 4th of July. So anyway, because of that, we managed to get 9. I don't think we're necessarily going to pass that or even equal that in future years. And there were a lot of shows I was interested in. In fact, I would say there were some that were left on the table, even while seeing 9 of them. So I saw 6 musicals and 3 plays. The plays, I have only ever seen 2 plays in my life before this trip, which were To Kill a Mockingbird and Stereophonic, which was last year. So I added 3 more, which, makes me feel a little more cultured now that I'm seeing plays in addition to musicals.
Why did you add so many more plays to the list?
Well, 2 of them were actually all 3 of them to some extent were unique circumstances. So the first one, Oh Mary, is one I really wanted to see, and they had a 5 o'clock show, so we didn't have to get there earlier. They have it's a short little show, and it had 5 o'clock performances. Stranger Things, which I saw with you guys, was the only option Sunday night besides Book of Mormon in Chicago, which are long running ones that I've not seen in New York, but I've seen other places, didn't feel the need to see. And then John Proctor's The Villain was the show that had the Tuesday matinee. So I was like, why not? I don't have anything else to do on a Tuesday afternoon. Literally no other Broadway show has a Tuesday matinee. And I've never not been against seeing plays. It's just when I have limited slots, I usually like to fill them with musicals. So the fact that there were just these kind of open slots for plays, that's how it worked out this year.
Perfect.
So I'll go kind of in chronological order. Geoff and Amanda can jump in with the 2 that we saw together. And then maybe at the end we could talk about some of our other little experiences, like being TV stars.
That's the real highlight of the trip.
Little tease there. The first show I saw was Oh Mary, which has been running for a year now, a little over a year. was just this big surprise hit of the last season, which I think we talked about on Tony's episode. Cole Escola, who won the Tony Award for performing in O'Mary and was the star for the first part of the run, and then came back to do a run at the Tonys, left the show a week before I arrived. So I did not see Cole, but I did see Titus Burgess, who was fantastic. Titus, of course, if you don't know, is from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. This is actually the second time I'd seen him on Broadway. I saw him years ago in Guys and Dolls, in the Guys and Dolls revival, way back when I was in college, before he kind of was a household name from Kimmy Schmidt. He was really, really wonderful in this, and I think I'm sure Cole is great because Cole wrote the show and probably has things that Titus doesn't have with that performance. But the thing I love about Titus is, this show is about Mary Todd Lincoln being kind of an alcoholic wannabe cabaret singer, and it's probably unresearched and just really, really kind of a madcap 80-minute comedy. And the thing I love about Titus is so good. If you've seen Kimmy Schmidt, you know that Titus is so good at playing like the put on type of character, like just aggrieved about everything. And that was very fitting for Mary, and this portrayal of Mary to be kind of aggrieved about everything and, just kind of whiny and very funny. The show moves like a lightning speed. And then, no, I don't want to spoil too much, but there is a performance element to it with some singing, even though it's not a musical. And I'm sure Cole has a wonderful voice, but you can't beat Titus singing in a show because Titus is just an incredible singer. So it was really fun to see that. We were very close to the stage. We were about 4 or 5 rows back, but way off to the side. But that was really a fun place to be to see this show. I'm really glad we saw it. It's very, very bawdy and raunchy and silly and a good time. And I feel like it's going to keep going for a while. They have Jinx Monsoon coming in after Titus, and then somebody else who's not been announced yet coming after that. And who knows, they might just keep adding people. I've heard rumors or maybe wish casting of people. Bowen Yang I've heard talked about, Amy Sedaris. So I think there's an endless list if they can get the people to agree to even short runs. This will go for a while.
So. That's awesome. When you were describing it to us, I mean, I've seen like clips of it and stuff during like the Tony Awards and everything. It looks hilarious.
It's very funny. Yeah, very, very funny. Definitely the funniest show I saw on the trip. The next show was Saturday night. Saturday night, the Saturday matinee, 5 p.m. Performance for O'Mary. Saturday night, we saw Gypsy with Audra McDonald. As far as, despite my vast kind of knowledge of theater, and I've directed a lot of shows, I've seen, over, I think this was like in the 60s as far as number of Broadway shows, and I've seen plenty more in regional theaters and high schools and things like that. I've never seen Gypsy, which is a musical theater classic. I've never seen any version of it prior to this. And Audra's performance got a lot of mixed reviews from people who are big Gypsy fans and maybe saw the most recent revival of Patti LuPone in 2008. However, as somebody who had never seen the property, and never seen any version of it, I really liked it. I really liked Audra's performance, I should say. I thought her voice was maybe not quite suited for the role, but it didn't matter because she acted the crap out of it. Like she was just on another level acting wise throughout the entire show. And I think she played it an interesting portrayal of it. The thing that didn't work as well for me was I felt like the production itself was a very safe paint by the numbers Gypsy, and I felt like Audra was doing something very unique. And I wish that they had tried to match the tone of the production to the type of Mama Rose that Audra was playing. I think that's one reason that it didn't work as well as it should have as a whole show, because I think it was like Audra was in one show and everybody else, including the director and the design team, were in a different show. And so I'm really glad to add Audra to the list of Broadway stars I have seen. She was a big one that I have not seen. I've seen Patti LuPone, I've seen Bernadette Peters, I've seen Sutton Foster. I have not seen Audra, so I was very happy to see her.
The first of a few Broadway stars you've knocked off on this trip.
Yes.
Which I'm very excited to hear all about.
So that was, I'm glad to have seen Gypsy finally. So then the next day for the matinee, we saw Death Becomes Her. And this was the first one that Amanda and Geoff saw with
Woohoo!
us based on the film that maybe we'll do for this podcast at some point because none of us has seen the film. I'll let you two discuss Death Becomes Her. I will say before we do it that if you follow Broadway, you know that the two leading ladies have had some attendance issues. We did not see either one of them. Megan Hilty was on a medical leave. She's back now, but was on a medical leave. And Jen Samard was out the day we saw her. So we saw understudies in both the two Tony-nominated lead roles. But go ahead.
Well, I don't personally feel like we were gypped at all by
Not at all.
not seeing the two main leads. The two women that we saw were absolutely fantastic.
So
one
good.
of them was the longest running Alphaba in Broadway history, or one of the longest running Alphabas. So, that makes you feel good, like you're in good hands.
Yeah, I was very, very, very pleased by this show. I had a blast with it.
Yeah, the show is so funny. I did not know what to expect. I do think that the first, it felt like maybe there was some, like, I guess timing issues with like the plot and how again, we haven't seen the movie. So I don't know if they copied it exactly from the movie or how that all, transpired. But, it felt like it took a little while to get to the thing. And then the thing was like pretty short-lived, I guess. But I mean, I don't know. I was dying laughing for a lot of this show. My favorite number was the guy in his basement, which won't make sense to anybody who hasn't seen it, but just have to say that was my favorite. And yeah, they had a lot of practical effects in this practical effects. They're all practical effects in Broadway, baby.
Well, usually.
No CGI. But no, a lot of the technical effects that they did were very, very good, very fun. Didn't see some of them coming. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Can't wait to watch the movie.
Yeah, this was definitely one of the funnier musicals I've seen. And we had just seen something like Book of Mormon last year when we did our Broadway visit. And I mean, that's like the top of the list. But like this had a lot of laughs right close by that. And I agree with you. I wish we had spent more time with them dead. But yeah, no, this was a lot of fun. This was a good show.
Yeah, I enjoyed. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. I weirdly like the way that I view movies and the way I view theater are so different. Because my brain almost turns off when I go to theater. I'm just blown away by everything. And then when I get that sort of other perspective from outside people, I'm like, oh, I guess you're right. Yeah. It's tough for me to do like side by sides of shows. Maybe that's just the live element of it. I just get so wrapped up in it. And I'm almost like, oh, I don't, this story plot or whatever. I'm like, y'all crushed it. And your voices didn't crack. You nailed all your choreography. My mind just kind of like turns off when it comes to things like that.
And I think that's fine, especially when you're only seeing a couple shows. Like I think that's something where my 9 shows in 5 days kind of, gets me like this grizzled, like,
right.
Look at some of the, and I did enjoy Death Becomes Her. It was not one of my favorites of the trip, but I did enjoy it. I think it was very technically well done, except for the sound. I had some complaints about the sound. Like Amanda said, the effects were very impressive. I think the lighting was gorgeous. The costumes were gorgeous. It was inventive in the way it was staged. I think it had a lot of funny elements. I think my biggest complaint besides the sound was similar to what you two said, was it just took a lot of ramping up for me. Like one of its famous numbers is the second one in the whole show was called For the Gaze, which is a playoff of words, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously, but spelled Gaze in the song list. And it's a really fun production number, but it's done so early that you almost don't even have your bearings. So I felt like there were some pacing issues for the first half, especially up until really kind of the last scene of Act 1. And then I felt like then it really kind of kicked into its story, and I liked the second act more than the first. And I do wish we had seen Megan Hilty and Jen Samard. But I had no complaints about the understudies. I was saying to Amanda and Geoff at the show that I've only ever once felt like I got gypped by an understudy, and that was not on this trip.
Good.
So that night we saw Stranger Things. Now, this is a new play that is a prequel to the TV show. Amanda and Geoff have kept up with the TV show. I stopped watching partway through season 2. So I'm going to turn over to Amanda and Geoff.
Yeah. This show, not a musical, it is a play. Some musical elements. I kept thinking it was a musical before we went, but first of all, I feel like what everyone talks about with this movie are the technical effects, and that is worth all the talk because it was spectacular. The very opening scene is, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes long, maybe. Maybe not even that long. I don't know. Super intense, like just what you'd expect from Stranger Things. And the effects there were so crazy. And you know, after it ends, the whole theater just goes dark, and the Stranger Things theme song just starts playing. And when I tell you that whole theater like went wild, like
It was crazy.
I have never felt more hyped up for anything. I keep comparing it to like when people saw Endgame in the theaters, and there were certain moments where people were just like going crazy. It's like, imagine that, but like 3 or 4 movie theaters worth of people all together. So yeah, the effects that they did in this were crazy. I do not know how they did some of this stuff. The plot, so for those of you that do follow Stranger Things, it's more of a prequel to season 4, where we learn about Vecna's past and like his growing up and how he ends up at the facility. So that's really the focus of the plot. A lot of it takes place in high school. A lot of the characters like Joyce and Hopper and Bob are like in high school with him. So you know who a lot of the characters are, but the plot does drag a bit. Overall, I thought it was like kind of interesting to see his backstory, but like I think it was definitely too long, and it dragged in a lot of these scenes that were at the high school.
Yeah, I agree with you, Amanda. I think one thing that really stood out was the performance of the lead, and Henry Creel, and sort of the way that kid portrayed that character, and just the intensity at which he had to be the entire show dealing with these mental tribulations on top of trying to act normal. Like, there was an incredible balance, and the intensity at which this teenager goes at from start to finish is just unreal and truly needed to be commended. I was like, wow, this is insane. But yeah, agreed with you about the plot. I was more into it for like the technical effects, the incorporation to the story. I'm one of those people who was pointing at the stage like, oh, that's so and so, that's so and so. Very Easter eggy, but yeah, it was fun. I had a fun time with it.
Mm-hmm.
It technically is very, very impressive. One of the most impressive, if not the most impressive show I've ever seen. Technically, there's a lot of elements that feel like a movie. And I'm not just talking about the audience's behavior during it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the audience in this was awful.
I've heard it's even been worse at other performances. I don't think we got it that bad, but there was a lot of kind of up and down and things like that. But I agree with Amanda. The moment when the kind of opening scene ended and the music started and the title screen was kind of coming up, it was a very cool experience. I though was bored to tears by the plot. I attribute some of it to not being interested in the show and not keeping up with the show,
right?
And I attribute some of it to it just being a boring story. So I think it was both those things. I think it was too long. I think some of the effects, as cool as they were, got kind of done a few times. Maybe a few times too many. So to me, the effects, as cool as they were, was not enough to save the show for me. This was my least favorite of the trip. Not one of my least favorite of all time though, because of the technical elements really
Yeah.
kind of saved it in that regard. So that's Stranger Things. We'll get
Mhm.
back to what we did on Monday during the day at the end here, but then after Amanda and Jeff left, that night on Monday evening we saw Maybe Happy Ending, and I went from my least favorite show to my favorite show of the trip. Maybe Happy Ending is the reigning best musical winner, and it is set in a futuristic world in Korea where helper bots are part of the daily experience for humans. But has to do with two helper bots who have become kind of obsolete and abandoned by their owners and are left to live out their lives in these apartments that they don't leave. Um, and it stars Darren Criss and Helen J. Shen. Darren Criss, of course, a well-known name, but Helen J. Shen, fairly newcomer to Broadway and much younger. And it's a really, really sweet story. Like that is not the type of story I would typically like. It feels kind of sci-fi, but it's not. It's really a story about like love and loneliness and companionship. They go on this kind of journey together to try to find Darren Chris's character's owner who had abandoned him. And as they do, they kind of fall in love. I'm not going to spoil what happens in the end because this will probably be running on Broadway for a while, although I believe Darren Criss is only in it until the end of the summer. It started last fall and looked on the verge of closing, and then it really caught fire with audiences and became kind of this word of mouth hit. And I can understand why. It's just so sweet and so charming. It's really it has so much to say about like appreciating the journey and not just the destination of life and love. It's heartfelt. It's got this beautiful jazzy orchestral score that is really kind of a unique sound for Broadway right now, I think. I'd say almost even a little Sondheim-y, but I don't want to say that, and have people be like, it's not like, but there's an element that reminded me of it. It's a really wonderful show. I would highly recommend it. If you go see it, I would recommend that you pay a little more to sit a little more close to center because it is staged very much that way. I think if we had been even we were luckily close enough that we only had a little bit that was cut off. If we had been a few more seats to our left, I think we would have lost a lot more of the staging. So if you see cheap seats way off to the side, don't get them. It is worth the extra money to be a little more towards center. It's a really, really sweet performance. Really, really adorable, heartfelt musical. My favorite I've seen since Kimberly Akimbo. And I would say a top 10 all-timer for me. So
That's
that's maybe
awesome.
happy ending. Yeah.
That's
It
awesome.
was-
And another Broadway star, Darren Criss. There you
yes. Yes. And and sometimes with these best musical winners, I'm always a little nervous because I hated The Band's Visit. I hated Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. I was kind of lukewarm on Fun Home, but this one really I loved. Then Tuesday afternoon saw John Proctor is the Villain, which I loved, and I was surprised. It is a play. With reason number one, I'm surprised. No, actually, two of my top three, O'Mary and John Proctor, were probably the next two for me after Maybe Happy Ending. So the plays came through, except for Stranger Things. John Proctor's The Villain is set in 2018 in a, I believe, Georgia classroom, a high school classroom. And it is set in the Me Too era, where, a lot of celebrities were getting canceled, so for lack of a better word. And this is kind of how it hits a small town in its own way, told through kind of the lens of the Crucible. And that's the text that the class is studying. This has, speaking of Stranger Things, Sadie Sink in it. She was great, but my favorite character was Finestraza, who, fun fact, was the youngest Broadway Matilda back in the day, but is now like 20 years old or something like that. She played one of the students in the class and was nominated for a Tony very deservedly for this. And all the girls and the boys in the class were really interesting characters. I thought the characters were very well drawn and well considered. It was a very interesting exploration. I have not read The Crucible since high school. I did a little Wikipedia reading right before just to remind myself. And but you don't really need to have done it to enjoy this show. Because they really are only using the Crucible as a framework for the story they want to tell. And, again, I'm not going to spoil it. It's running through the end of the summer, although Sadie Sink will have been gone by the time this episode airs. But I don't think she was good, but to me, I don't think I would have liked it any less with her not in it. It's directed by Danya Tamor, who directed The Outsiders and did a fantastic job directing that show, did a fantastic job directing this show. The final, like, 10 seconds of the play, one of my favorite endings to a show I've ever seen.
Nice.
I won't give it away, but
Good.
I really liked it a lot, and I was very pleasantly surprised by this show. I didn't know if I would find it a little, a little heavy-handed or
I was
something
about to
like
say
that,
on the
but
nose. Yeah.
yeah. But I really, really loved it. They have a killer playlist before, but that's one of the things too. Like all these plays I went to, and even some of the musicals, like do playlists now before the show, and like so. Oh, Mary had kind of old standards. Stranger Things had like 50s doo-wop kind of stuff, and this one had like uh girl power anthems, so like Run the World and all those kinds of things, some Taylor Swift and some things like that. It was a great show. I highly recommend it to anybody who's in New York this summer, but it is closing at the end of the summer. Tuesday night was Just in Time, which is the Bobby Darin musical starring Jonathan Groff. I saw Jonathan Groff last year in Merrily We Roll Along, and he is the reason to see this show. It is in Circle and Square, so it's in a very unique setup, the round, and it is set up to be like a Copacabana type 50s nightclub. And it is gorgeous. They have done beautiful work in that theater. And when he comes out at the very beginning, he introduces himself as Jonathan Groff. And he says like he's going to be playing Bobby Darin for the night. And so it's kind of framed in a very unique way of like kind of tying Jonathan Groff to Bobby Darin and how they both felt so at home on stage and things like that.
Yeah.
And I loved that. I thought that was really compelling and a really unique take on biomusicals. However, then it just kind of falls into biomusical tropes. And I have seen Jersey Boys and Beautiful and On Your Feet and Ain't Too Proud. And I've seen so many of these biomusicals, and there have been even more other ones I haven't seen, and they all kind of fall into the same patterns of things. There's the lover who like gets, they can't get together because the career is more important, or the parents who get estranged and then they have the sweet moment at the end, or the struggle to get that first record and then the joy of selling that. Like it's all follows the same kind of stuff. And I thought when this show started it was going to be something different, and then it really wasn't for a lot of it. It was at the beginning and it was at the end. And so when you see some of the songs like Bobby Darin, if you don't know, did Beyond the Sea, did Splish Splash, did Mac the Knife, did Dream Lover, like all those songs are really fun when he does those. And you can, any biomusical is going to be amazing at the end when they do the mashup of all the big hits. You're going to have yourself a great time and walk out on a high. And Jonathan Groff is doing his darndest to really sell everything, and he's really compelling. The show is staged inventively. I just wish the script had not fallen into so many of those biomusical tropes that so many biomusicals do.
Yeah.
I just would like, and I felt like this had the potential to be able to be more than that, and unfortunately wasn't for a lot of it. But again, Jonathan Groff, fantastic. Although I do think Darren Criss deserved the Tony over him. And then Gracie Lawrence was really excellent too. She sings "Who's Sorry Now" as Connie Francis. She was really, really compelling as well. All right, last day. It's like a whirlwind version.
I was about to say, bro, you're like
Yeah.
you're tiring me out as I'm sitting here. I'm like, jeez.
So the last day we saw Sunset Boulevard for the matinee, which I believe when this episode comes out, this is closing this Sunday. Sunset Boulevard has Nicole Scherzinger in a very unusual, very stripped down version of this production. It originally was done with a mammoth set back in like the British invasion height of extreme opulent sets, and they had a mansion that like flew in from the way or the fly space. This is done with pretty much no set, pretty like very modern, sleek black costumes. And it's done a lot with screens, and Sunset Boulevard, of course, is based on a movie, so there is some understanding of why they're doing some of that, because they tie it to the movies and things like that. They famously have an opening in Act 2 where the character goes out into the streets and they film it live, and you're watching live in the theater while he's out walking the streets in Schubert Alley and on 44th Street, which is a really thrilling moment. Nicole Scherzinger as Norma Desmond sings it beautifully. The orchestra sounded incredible, just incredible. However, the thing I kept saying about the show was I kept feeling like it felt like a senior theater majors project, but with a lot more money and a lot more talent.
Oh my gosh.
So like obviously the talent was there, obviously the spectacle was there, even though it was a very minimalist design, but it was just so weird. And I don't know that all the choices were really effective. I feel like sometimes they were just being weird to be weird. And so even though I think Sunset is it's got some good music. It's I have not seen a full production of it, but I was familiar with some of the songs. I think it's kind of a slightly messy script anyway, but this kind of took it to another level of weirdness, and it's strange. It's not for everybody. Some people think it's the theatrical event of the season. I don't agree. I just found it strange in a lot of times, despite the good performances and the fun use of screens, which was like a thing this year between that and Stranger Things, and even to some degree, maybe Happy Ending had a little bit with that. I'm glad I saw it. I'm not glad I sat in the mezzanine of the St. James because there's no leg room at all in that theater, which I always forget about until I sit there. But it's not for everybody. And if you are more of a traditionalist with musicals, I wouldn't say I necessarily am, but I don't like changing things just for the sake of changing things, which is how it felt a little bit with this show.
That's fair. Go watch the movie. That's all I can say.
We need to do that for this podcast.
It's so good. The movie is amazing.
Yeah. And I would like to do that for sure, because I am intrigued by the story.
It's a very mystery kind of movie.
Yeah, and it's like a film noir kind of feel, right? Which is definitely a vibe they were going for with this. But again, I just don't know that all their decisions made sense or worked for what they were going through. I think they had an interesting concept that maybe went a little bit awry at times, but yeah. I'm in the minority on this because it's been a big success. People seem to really like it. I would have given the Tony Award to Audra over Nicole. Sorry to the kid wearing the Nicole shirt at Stranger Things. But we saw a teenager wearing a shirt with a picture of Nicole Scherzinger accepting the Tony Award. And I was like, oh boy. The last show we saw was Boop, which will have closed by the time this episode airs. It closed, I believe, yesterday if you're listening the day this episode drops. And Boop is, of course, based on Betty Boop, a well-loved cartoon figure. But really, does anybody really love her anymore? I don't know, which I think is part of the problem with this show. I think this would have been a big hit in the 60s or something like that.
I was about to say, go to Universal Studios and you have Betty Boop character meet and greets and everything. They try to make it a thing.
Maybe she's more popular than I think. But maybe not because the show is closing.
I think you're fine. Yeah, I think you're correct.
So this is it's a fun show. It's a very kind of classic Broadway, family friendly. This is going to be, of all the shows I saw on this trip, the most likely high school show that's going to get into the high school rotation, aside from high schools that do plays, because they will definitely do John Proctor, I think. But as far as musicals go, I think this one's going to be part of the high school rotation for sure. And it's very light and breezy and silly. I didn't think the script was that funny, though. I thought the production values were kind of cheap in places. Like the costumes were great, but the lighting and especially the sets were kind of meh, especially compared to something like Death Becomes Her, which had really strong technical aspects. This one felt kind of lackluster in that sense. But if you're like, I want to go to a Broadway show that I'm not going to have to think about a darn thing, and I just want to watch tap dancing, and I want to watch color, and I want to watch, flashiness and just a light story, this is the show to see. It is very, very fluffy, and it is fun. I think it could have probably stood to have some more work done on it before it came to Broadway, because I think it had a gem of a good thing. It's got kind of a Barbie vibe to it, because it's kind of about her going from the Boop world to the real world. So it definitely has that kind of, it reminded me a lot of Barbie, actually, but not as well executed. A lot of kind of subplots that kind of start and stop without really getting fleshed out. But the star, Jasmine Amy Rogers, was fantastic. She's a newcomer to the Broadway scene, and she is well deserving of her Tony nomination. Probably in a year that didn't have Audra Nicole, she would have been a strong contender to win, because she really sells the crap out of the part. And so it was a fun show, and like I said, of all the shows I saw, it's probably the one I'm most likely to direct someday. So So I'm glad I saw it, and I'm glad it was nice to end on kind of a lighthearted one too. Ending on something more heavy is always kind of weird. So
Yeah. You have to sit with that in the car for however many hours, and you're like, whoa.
yeah. So that was the trip.
What would
In
you
addition,
say?
lots of good food. Amanda and Jeff and Casey and I went to a restaurant called Beasts and Butterflies, which overlooked Times Square. Food was fine, but the view was really fun. And then we did an escape room, and we escaped. And then,
Did.
as I teased, we were TV stars. I don't know if one of you would like to take the lead on this.
Well, Ben is the biggest Kelly and Mark fan of all time.
Amazing. He's such a huge fan.
No, so Ben was like, "You want to get tickets to go to a live taping of a show?" And we're like, "Okay." And it was easy to get tickets to Live with Kelly and Mark. So,
They are free if anybody's going to New York. You do have to reserve
yeah.
them, but they are free.
Yeah. And I was like, "Who's Kelly and who's Mark?" And Ben told us all about them while we were waiting in line to go in. And
So
so
in depth.
he is
Okay.
a super fan.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Finish your lies.
That is all truth, Ben. You told us so much stuff while we were waiting in line.
It's because I follow pop culture, Amanda. So my
Yeah.
parents watched Regis and Kathy Lee when I was a kid. And then I
Mhm.
just, over the years, knew about who was on the show. And that it went from Regis and Kathy Lee to Regis and Kelly to Kelly and Michael to Kelly and Ryan,
Yeah, whatever
to
you have
Kelly
to
and
tell
Mark.
yourself.
But I have not watched an episode of the show in a long time
Well, no, you watched an episode of the show
until
like
this
a week
trip.
ago.
Until this trip.
Yeah, so anyways, we got to go on the show and we got pretty good seats. We were like the 56th-ish people in line. And so we got to sit, fun fact, there's like a balcony in addition to like the bottom section. So we got to sit in the bottom section and there was a camera planted right in front of us, and all of our parents were watching while the show was on. So they were texting us throughout the show, being like, "Oh, we just saw you." But yeah, so that was really fun. That was my first time ever watching Kelly and Mark, or any of the iterations of Kelly and Kathy Lee and whoever. Um, and yeah, it was really interesting to watch all the behind the scenes things going on. And I know that both of you felt that way too, especially Ben. Him and I were talking about that a lot while it was going on. It was just really fun to see people with cue cards, to see the hand signals, to see people like talking with each other and changing things out. And just kind of that whole aspect of it was really interesting.
It was really interesting and exciting too. It's the second show I've been to a taping of. I went to a taping of The Price is Right back in college, and very different between something that's pre-recorded and something that's going to air, a few months in advance, to something that's being shown live in the moment. What I did appreciate though was that Kelly and Mark, much like with The Price is Right too, with when Drew Carey was doing too, he would like ask questions of the crowd and stuff like that. They also did a lot of interactions with us as well. And we're going over to people, snagging pictures when they could. They had their own little stories off camera. It was a good time. I had a lot of fun. Obviously, it's not something I would necessarily tune into on a regular basis, but hey, it was something I've never done before, and definitely something I would be down to do again.
Yeah, it was something that's been on my bucket list for all the times I go to New York. But typically it's hard to find one that's maybe going to coincide well with the Broadway show schedule and things like that. And this worked because in the morning I did look into both Colbert and Seth Meyers and Daily Show. None of them were airing new episodes the week we were there. Kelly Mark was really our only choice, but it ended up being super fun. And I agree. I think the live element, which is not even true for some of those other ones I mentioned, really adds to the fun because it's our parents were texting us in real time, as Amanda mentioned, and there's no do-over, there's no like let's reshoot this, retape this. It was fun to see, like Amanda said, the hand signals, the cue cards, the behind the scenes mechanisms. One thing that struck me was how the producer, who has been the producer since it was Regis and Kathy Lee back in the 80s, and is still the producer, he is so engaged, and he is right off the camera. Sometimes he's even on camera at the beginning, but when he's not on camera, he's like right out of the frame. He's right, and just very locked in for that hour, which was kind of cool to see his job. I was like, I would like that job. That'd be a fun job.
It's an intense job for sure. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
pressure
for an
on
hour.
you.
But then, I mean, I know he doesn't work. I know he's got a lot of other things to do too. But like, he is locked in for that hour. There's
For
nothing else
sure.
that matters. Um, and yeah, it was a very fun experience. It's one I would definitely do again, or with that show or another show.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I think we all kind of feel that way. Definitely.
I have one final question for you,
Okay.
Ben. If you
Yes.
had to summarize, I guess what would your rankings be of the shows? I know
Yeah,
yeah, I would love to hear kind of your final one
yeah. So I
through
would
of
go for
everything.
this trip. Number one, maybe Happy Ending. Two, Oh Mary. Three, John Proctor. Um, I would say like maybe Happy Ending is in a tier by itself. The
Yep.
next two plays kind of are in their own tier. And then I would go kind of the next, like the mid tier, which are all kind of really close together. Um, I would say four would be Gypsy, five Just in Time, six Boop, seven Death Becomes Her. That'd be like another chunk right there. I'd put and the gap from Gypsy to Death Becomes Her is very small. Those four could
Hmm.
get rearranged pretty easily. And then the bottom two, eight would be Sunset, and nine would be Stranger Things.
All right. Awesome.
And as I mentioned, I would put maybe Happy Ending in my all-time top 10.
Nice.
Well, yeah, that kind of wraps up our review of but mostly Ben's trip, but our brief time as well in New
Next
York
time,
City.
Amanda, now that I know you want to, I'll invite you to all nine shows.
Yeah, exactly.
And I will
Can't wait.
say, like, people are like, doesn't that must cost you a fortune? And it's not a cheap trip, but we're not getting premium seats, anything. We're not, we are not getting like some people go and see a show or two and pay top dollar for it. We were not doing that with any of these shows. We were getting
Yeah.
either cheap seats or doing things like TDF and things like that to get cheaper tickets. So
Plus,
although
you're
it is
saving
not
up all
a
year.
cheap trip, it is not, we are not like splurging for $300 seats at any show by any
Ex-
means.
Exactly. Plus, you're saving up all year. You know
Right.
you're doing this. It's already set in your schedule.
Yeah.
Proper planning prevents poor performance.
Well, the other thing is that there's two of Jeff and I, so it's double of
It's
everything.
true.
That's true. I'm holding you back, Amanda. I'm weighing you down.
And we stay, I mean, Amanda
You're
would
not
not
holding me back.
entertain staying at the same hotel because Casey and I stay at, something that's about the cheapest hotel you can find while not being sketchy.
Okay, first of all, our hotel was only like $20 more expensive than your hotel.
But
And again,
a night,
okay, well, and
and we were
again,
staying 5 nights.
we stayed one night, but you
Right.
also get to split that cost with Casey. We don't
Yes.
get to split that
Yes.
cost with anybody.
I know.
So, it's a little bit more difficult. But yes. So, I hope that you all enjoyed hearing about these shows and our travels and, hopefully you all, if you're, into Broadway shows, that you get a chance to go to New York City and see some of these, or any of the other ones that are on Broadway. Just support the arts in general.
Amen to that. Go to your local
Yes.
theaters, go to your city theaters, everything. Yeah, support the arts.
And see different shows. You don't need to go
Yes.
see Lion King again or Wicked again, my friends.
Right,
There's so many
yeah.
good things
Yeah.
on Broadway.
Exactly. The
But
only reason
also
go ahead.
do a little bit of research before you pick a show. Don't just
Yes.
blindly pick a show.
Yes.
Correct.
You might be unpleasantly surprised, by a topic or subject matter in certain shows. So,
Yeah.
do a tiny bit of research. Don't just get tickets to whatever is the cheapest at TKTS.
That's true.
All right, let's move into our top four. So we are doing our top four most anticipated movie or TV releases for the remainder of 2025. We earlier this year, maybe in December, maybe in January, I can't remember exactly when we did it. We kind of did a recap of what we are most anticipated for the first half of the year. And now that we're somehow halfway through 2025, I don't really understand how that's happened. But now that we're halfway through, we wanted to give lists of what we're excited for in the next half of the year. So, Jeff, why don't you hit us with your list?
Awesome. Yeah, I hit it big first half of the year. I was most anticipated movies included Sinners and Mickey 17, and guess what? We came out winners in that one, baby. Also F1. Shout out to F1. So
Have you seen F1?
I have seen F1. I saw it in IMAX. It's sick.
Thumbs up. Yeah.
If you like Drive to Survive, the TV show, and don't know much about F1, you're gonna love it. But if you're super into F1, you'll be frustrated at a few things, but also you get really close up in the action. So it's really well shot. So I have a very long list of honorable mentions. Him, a sports horror movie coming out in August. Tron Ares, with a score, is going to be done by Nine Inch Nails. A bunch of Oscar movies like A House of Dynamite or Sentimental Value or Die My Love. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, Benny Safdie's Marty Supreme, just a whole list of honorable mentions. But we ain't got time for that. We got to get into the meat and potatoes. So here we are, my top 4 most anticipated. So I realized when I did this list last year, I didn't have any sort of Oscar movies on my list outside of maybe Nosferatu. And looking back last year, I was super hyped up for Anora and just didn't think to put it on my list. I don't know why. That was dumb because Anora rocked and won Best Picture. So I'm going to start right off the bat with an Oscar contender, and it's going to be Begonia, due out at the end of October. It's Yorgos Lanthimos' new movie. This is his fourth movie in 7 years. And actually all of them have starred Emma Stone. So this is another one that stars Emma Stone, and his second one in a row with Jesse Plemons. The synopsis of this movie is crazy. 2 conspiracy-obsessed young men kidnap the high-powered CEO of a major company, convinced that she is an alien intent on destroying planet Earth. There's a teaser trailer for this movie, and it looks awesome. Stars Emma Stone, stars Jesse Plemons, stars comedian Stavros Halkias, stars Alicia Silverstone. Super excited for this movie. Number 3, Wake Up Dead Man. We got another Knives Out Benoit Blanc movie coming back, baby. Super excited. If Rian Johnson and Daniel Craig want to keep making another one of these every 2 to 3 years, I'm so on board. So Wake Up Dead Man obviously stars Daniel Craig, but it's going to also feature Josh O'Connor. It's going to feature Glenn Close, Josh Brolin, Mia Kunis, Jeremy Renner, Kerry Washington, Andrew Scott, Kaylee Spaney. Just an incredible list of people. I'm super, super excited for this. Knives Out is one of the greatest movies I've seen this century. Glass Onion, not as good, but still a ton of fun. I'm super excited for this. Number 2 is a movie called Weapons. This is directed by Zach Cregger, who, if you've never seen his first movie, Barbarian, crazy horror movie. Don't read anything before seeing it, just watch it. It is like, I wish that movie was on VHS. It looks insane. So Weapons is a horror movie coming out in August, and here is the brief sort of synopsis. Last night at 2:17 a.m., every child from Mrs. Gandy's class woke up, got out of bed, went downstairs, opened the front door, walked into the dark, and they never came back. It looks insane. There's a teaser, there's a trailer. They're doing really cool stuff with the marketing. Gives very Long Legs vibes from last year. I'm super excited for this movie. I've got it on my watch list. I can't wait to see it opening weekend. It looks super intense. As the horror movie representative of this podcast, I vouch. And then number 1 most anticipated is the movie I'm doing the most prep work for. I'm going to rewatch all of his movies before this. It's called One Battle After Another, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. This is one of Warner Brothers' big Oscar players, as well as Sinners. This stars Leonardo DiCaprio in the lead role, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, Regina Hall, Tiana Taylor. This is an adaptation of the novel Vineland. The original screenplay is written by PTA. This is his 10th movie. Music will be composed by Johnny Greenwood. Super excited for that. And I've only seen the trailer for this movie once. I saw it before my screening of F1. This is filmed in IMAX. This is filmed in a very similar style to The Brutalist. This is filmed in VistaVision. And of all the trailers that played before when I saw F1, this was the one that got the biggest reaction. It looks hilarious. The scale looks amazing. It looks like a war movie between revolutionaries and government military forces. Super duper excited for this. Consider me there opening weekend. One battle after another. Can't wait to watch all of PTA's movies leading up to this. I'm super duper excited.
Thank you. Ben, let's hear your list.
All right. So my number 4 or my top 4 usually involves only TV shows. did for the last year when we did this, I believe, and did I know in January. A lot of the TV shows I was really looking forward to were in the first half of 2025. White Lotus, The Last of Us, Severance, things like that. There's less I'm interested in as far as TV, at least on the outset, because there's not a lot of returning things I'm interested in. Now, that doesn't mean that there can't be great things coming out, and there will probably be some things that surprise me on TV. We're in a little bit of a lull right now in the summertime with TV, after a really strong start to 2025 with TV shows. And I'm curious when we do our top tens at the end of the year, if it'll be more heavy from the first half of the year this year. I feel like it will be. But we'll see, because there could be some surprises coming out and some things that haven't been announced, or things that maybe don't sound that great on paper but end up being really great. I wouldn't have thought The Pit was going to be amazing just reading the log line of it, you know? So you never know with that, with TV or movies for that matter. But my goal is also to be able to do a top 10 movies at the end of the year. As I've told Amanda and Geoff, I'm already two. So I will get there. But, as the opposite, obviously most of the big player movies come out in the second half of the year as opposed to the first half of the year. So my list actually is a mix this year, or this time around. My honorable mentions are the second season of Platonic, which I think I mentioned before. Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne. Really, really enjoyed the first season. And I'm looking forward to the second season on Apple TV Plus. Comes out in August. All Her Fault, which is a Peacock missing child thriller, which sounds like, a lot of other dramas I've seen, but this one stars Sarah Snook. And I really love Sarah Snook, so that makes it immediately more interesting to me than your average missing child thriller. Another honorable mention is Wicked for Good. You know,
Just want to be done with it.
it's got to be on there. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't like the second act of Wicked very much, so I'm very curious to see what happens with the movie. This is most anticipated, not necessarily things I think I'll like the most, which also leads to my next one, which is something that I'm also very, very, even more skeptical of, but I wanted to put on the list, which is The Paper. Which is the Office spinoff set in the same universe as The Office, from the same people who did The Office, and featuring Oscar as Oscar. It's coming to Peacock in September, a comedy series. And I don't know. I don't know how this is going to be. I feel like it could be terrible.
I'm approaching with caution with that
But,
one.
I am curious, and this is, again, a most anticipated list. I don't see it making my top 10 at the end of the year, but I'll be prepared to be surprised. All right. My top four. Number 4 is a movie called Now You See Me, Now You Don't.
Yes.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I really like magic things for some reason. It's like something that there was a show called Deception about a magician that I really liked. I loved the first Now You See Me. I didn't love the second Now You See Me. But I'm very curious about the third one, because it was a franchise I am very interested in. The mix of the heist and the magic is fun to me. Number 3, just like Geoff had on his list, Wake Up Dead Man. I love kind of lighthearted thrillers, which is both the Now You See Me franchise and the Knives Out franchise. And so I also agree I like the first one more than Glass Onion, but I'm very excited to see this one. Knives Out, both the first two Knives Out are 2 of like the last 5 movies I've seen in the theaters. Going back to 2019. I have not seen a lot of movies in theaters. Number 2 is a TV show called The Beast in Me, airing on Netflix later this year. It stars Claire Danes and Matthew Rhys. The logline is: an author investigates her neighbor, author being Claire Danes, the neighbor being Matthew Rhys, who is a prime suspect in his wife's murder. Sounds a little by the books thriller, but with those 2 names, I'm very interested, because I think they're both really great actors, and they usually do like prestige kind of stuff. They don't just do kind of soapy, nonsense. So I feel like it could be very good. Hopefully it will be. And then my number 1 has been kind of in the works for a while on Netflix, and has still doesn't have a release date, but it's supposed to be coming in the second half of 2025. It is called Death by Lightning. And it is a limited series that is based on the assassination of James Garfield, which is not a president you know a lot about his assassination compared to, say, the Lincoln assassination or the Kennedy assassination. And it stars Michael Shannon as President James Garfield. It says Michael Shannon plays President James Garfield in the stranger than fiction story about his greatest admirer, played by Matthew McFadden of Succession, the man who would then come to kill him. So I think it will be really, it's something I don't know much about in American history, and I'm very curious.
Sign me up. Absolutely sign me up.
Yeah, I didn't know about that Office TV show, so that's
Yeah.
that's gonna
Could
go
be
on my
could be
list of
terrible, could be fine.
yeah. I
We'll
mean,
see.
it's not gonna be The Office, that's for sure.
No. And that's why I feel like it's one of those things that I feel like if it just came out and wasn't tied to The Office, maybe people will be enjoying it and be like, oh, this reminds me of The Office. But since it's got that connection, I feel like people are going to have an unrealistic expectation that's going to doom it. But we'll see.
Let's say starring Domhnall Gleeson.
Yes, Sabrina Paggiatori and others, yeah.
Cool. All right, so for my list, literally just threw this together, so I'm probably missing some things. I don't really keep up on like what's coming out. So my two honorable mentions, the first one is Zootopia 2, which I don't know, kind of like most of the things on here / sequels. It's like, I don't know how good it's gonna be, but I really enjoyed Zootopia. So I'm hopeful that it'll be okay. And then my second honorable mention is Honey Don't, which stars Chris Evans and what's her name, Geoff?
Margaret Qualley.
Oh,
Aubrey
I do like
Plaza.
Margaret Qualley.
Aubrey
Oh,
Plaza.
wow.
Yeah. She's like a detective kind of lady, and Chris Evans is like the leader of a church cult type situation, and she's investigating, and it's giving, I know you haven't seen this movie, Ben, it's on our list, but it's giving me like Bad Times at the El Royale vibes, and I love that movie. So I'm very interested. I don't know how like not gore. I don't know how violent it's going to end up being. So like that may or may not like sway how I feel about it ultimately, but it's hard to tell from the trailer. But yes, I'm excited for that. My number 4 is The Roses, which is a movie with help me with names, Geoff.
Benedict Cumberbatch, Olivia Colman. The cast for that movie is insane. It's got like Andy Samberg, Kate McKinnon. Oh my goodness. It looks loaded.
Yeah. So Benny Cum and Olivia Colman are married and they hate each other, and they're like, I think trying to get divorced or gonna get divorced. But it looks very funny. It kind of looks like this kind of like anti rom-com ish vibes, but yeah, it just looks very funny and lighthearted, I guess. But I'm excited for it. My number 3 is Stranger Things season 5. Even though I'm like, kind of over Stranger Things, like I don't know, like the minute I get into it, I'm like, I'm in. Like, what's gonna happen? So it's weird because right now I'm like, whatever, I'm over Stranger Things. It takes too long for the seasons to come out. The episodes are too long. I don't like they're dropping it in 2 different parts, whatever. But I know that once it starts going, I'll be very much in and ready to watch whatever slop they have to throw at me. My number 2 is the King of the Hill revival. I love King of the Hill. I'm very skeptical about a reboot. Well, I guess it's not a reboot. I don't know what you would call it, but they're
almost legacy sequel.
Yeah,
kind
like
of.
they've moved on in time. Peggy and Hank are retired, and
I think the
Bobby's an
TV
adult.
term for that is revival.
Revival. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know how good it's gonna be. From all the clips and stuff that I've seen, it looks very true to the original, and the same kind of humor and everything. So I'm hopeful it'll be good. I'm excited to see what they do. And then my number 1, also on both of y'all's lists, Wake Up Dead Man. Gotta love it. Knives Out is one of my favorite movies and agreed Glass Onion was not as good, but it was good enough that I'm hyped for another sequel. And as long as they don't keep deteriorating in quality, I'm okay. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, like it's never going to be as good as the first Knives Out, but if all of these like offshoots just stay the same like okay quality, then that's great. I'm good with that.
Absolutely. I will definitely take every 2 to 3 years a semi-original, not obviously not a fully original, but like a semi-original murder mystery that's super high quality, that's easily watchable. I will take that 10 times out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And and it could be anywhere from like a 3.75 to a 5, much like most of Rian Johnson's movies. Perfect. Sign me up.
Yeah, for sure. So those are all of our lists. Hopefully that gave y'all some ideas of things to add to your list to stay tuned for and watch both in TV and movies. I think we had a pretty like good balance between TV and movies across all of us. So
yeah,
that's good. So for next week, if you would like to watch along with us, we're going to be doing American Pie, revisiting that old classic. I feel like this is a very good one in the you haven't seen that, it's such a culturally important movie. So be sure to watch that so you can join in our discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a rating or review and follow us on all our social channels. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see y'all next week.
To infinity and beyond!
Why so serious?
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.